Good morning, everybody. The court is now in session. Open session. Sorry, I had to do that. Right. Being a leader is hard, and don't believe anyone that tells you differently. Although I'll be talking about code leadership, many elements of that presentation might be beneficial for other departments. So please don't be discouraged by this long title saying my practical tips for effective code leadership. Anyone might find something interesting here. Those tips and examples might not apply entirely to you, but I believe at least some might be helpful. So let's lay out the plans. First of all, introduction, then I'll tell about basic qualities of a great leader and how to introduce the change. Then I'll tell you one or two words about infinite game and team building with decision making, then anti-fragility of your team, completion urgency, then show you my tool set of code leadership and summarize everything leading into a Q&A session. So now a bit of introduction. My name is Grzegorz Wątroba, but call me Greg, it will be easier that way. I'm a lead software engineer at Pixelant Games Poland. I'm playing games for over 30 years now and making them for over 14 years with different companies, platforms, yada yada. So yeah, the thing is, I happen to work at a bunch of studios, standard, IT included, which gave me a perspective of what works and what does not. I've seen the similarities of game dev and IT and where it differs, including production and leadership style. So yeah, it should be enough of the introduction. Let's get to the good stuff. So what is an actual role of the leader? Of course, that depends on the size and type of the company, but in general, leaders tick at least some of those boxes. So they're part of a company structure and they direct a group of shared competence or goal. They realize company's vision, communicate horizontally and vertically. So among other teams and also with its own team members and to the upper echelon. They help producers and upper management to organize work. They help team members to complete their tasks and educate them, mentor them, and so on. And they maintain company's culture. Now we know the functions, but how to be that person and what is required to fulfill those roles. So there are many leadership styles, but in my opinion, when you're at top of some hierarchy in terms of power and money, you have the responsibility. So with that, the servitude approach is more appropriate. So when you see the hierarchy in a triangle, you just reverse that and you see what is the proper way to conduct, in my opinion, of course. You are for your team, not your personal goal or gain. You are for your people. So John C. Maxwell, in his leadership books, described this as an investment or gamble because you're never sure that your actions will actually pay off. Still, you have to invest time and engagement in your team and be example of proper communication and feedback. Eventually, people will notice that and will notice that this is the best way to conduct actually. So they start to follow on their own after the leader. So another example, Major Winters, a World War II veteran. You've probably seen Company of Brothers on TV or something. So he's one of the main characters there. Said that the core of proper leadership is to be the example to follow and take on problems first. Of course, you are not and you should not be the smartest person in the room, at least not always. So then you should be able to elevate the team member that actually knows the solution and help that person rise with its own solution, right? So at the same time, Simon Sinek, in his works, always emphasizes that the success and praise should be always shown as a group effect, and the main goal of a leader is to elevate others as the priority, because the leader's success is measured by team's performance. Those qualities and actions are nice and dandy, but they're all connected with the need of change sometimes. So how can we introduce that? Again, I will refer to Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, where he described that most of the time we focus on what we want to do and how we want to do it. So like outside to the inside. But we forget about the reasoning behind it. So the thing is that this approach might not be that convincing. I often saw that dictatorship style leading without reasoning, but there's a better way. When we start with why, we start with purpose, beliefs, values, reasoning behind the change we want to conduct. Then we show how can we do that. So we show the process, the USP, the ways of conduct, and then we show the goal, what to do and what to achieve. That way people will follow you more likely because they will understand your reasoning behind the change. And then they will follow not because they need to, because you're their boss or like a manager or something, but they think that your values, your reasoning here is okay, and they will try to follow on their own. So it's better, I think. Of course, you cannot introduce the change on any magnitude the same way. The best course of actions are baby steps. Team will get used to change gradually. The bigger revolution, the harder resistance. So it's all about the balance and like gradual stepping with change. The crucial part here is consistency. So no matter the change, if you want your team to behave in a certain way, do or do not specific thing, you have to be the first to fulfill all requirements you expect from the team. So now let's move on to another layer of leadership, the philosophy behind team building, but also decision making. I will again address Simon Sinek's work, this time about games. So we have finite games and infinite games. Finite game is the one that we most know through video games, through competitions, sports, and so on. So we have known players, fixed rules, agreed upon objectives. Somebody has to lose, somebody has to win. We compete over, not always by the proper rules, and so on. So yeah, this is the finite game. Then we have infinite games. So those are with known and unknown players. Rules can change over time, and the goal is to stay in the game as long as possible. So the players fall out when they drain out of the resources or will to play. And those games are maintaining your own body, for example, maintaining relationship, team building, leading the company. Those are infinite games because we want to last forever with specific terms, right? And if we are first in what measure, then there's another goal and another goal. So all in all, it's all about infinite game. And why playing the infinite approach is that important, in my opinion? Because today we have many examples of bad planning and short-term solutions to get instant game, and in the long run those decisions tend to be catastrophic. Look at our gaming industry, like for last year at least or more. That is why in the areas such as leading a team, a company, a relationship, you cannot play finite game when you compete, compare, create pressure without learning on mistakes and successes and improving step by step. The infinite approach here is much better, but a bit slower. So you have to know that, and it's more difficult to conduct. However, if you know your goals and values, if you know how to sacrifice short term for long term, if you create environment to be open about fears, mistakes, and asking for help, you will create this this possibility to properly play the long game, the infinite game. Remember that competition shows your weaknesses, and if you're playing finite game, you try to outpace them, for example, or do something better or win with them. But if you're playing infinite game, you should admire other players and learn from them at first, because all in all, it's a bit of gym wisdom, and somebody told me that a few years ago. Do not compare yourself to others. If you're consistent, if you progress with your own pace, compare with yourself from the past and be proud of what you have achieved. So the biggest enemy of all, especially in infinite game, is yourself. So iterate and adapt to be better on your own terms, in your own pace. And this might be a bit of controversial, and I'm selling here a bit of Slavic philosophy. A friend of mine, CEO of Polish game dev company Anshar Studios, Łukasz Hacura, said this: game development team should not be a family, it should be a sports team prepared for the Olympics. Why? Because we should focus on honesty, respect, and efficiency, not the emotional safety. We should direct people to a certain goal without taking them by the hand. We should give people agency, not overprotectiveness. We should drive people to excellence through training, not by doing things for them. To some extent, he has a point, and of course, it depends on, how your family works, right? But this approach creates better environment, in my opinion, to gain anti-fragility. So, what is anti-fragility? It's a term taken from the book of Nassim Nicholas Taleb, Anti-Fragile Things That Gain from Disorder. We have a triad of systems. And those systems are, in a broad sense, everything like business, human body, relationship, and so on. And those triads are fragile, robust, and anti-fragile systems. So black swan seen in a picture is a problem, a catastrophe, a random event, an unpredictable event that has an immense impact on the whole system. Due to that, fragile breaks when uncertainty shows. Robust does not react, might bend a bit, but returns to the initial state, gains nothing from the problem. But anti-fragile becomes stronger under every stressor and gains from it. It might take more time to rebuild from the stressor, but all in all, it benefits more in the long term. So why do we actually need that? Because we cannot foresee everything. We have volatile market. Trends tend to change quickly. Money and investors might disappear overnight. People can leave or get sick. Even minor change might cause major problems. Every programmer knows that. And projects can fail on certain configurations under certain circumstances, so it's not really that easy. So we have a lot of stressors in this systems, in this world, in this environment, in this market. That's why we have to be anti-fragile. So how to achieve it? Retrospective, or learning from mistakes, gaining from past effects. So after every failure, every success, every sprint, milestone, project, think about what did work and what did not, and reiterate your process based on it. Then knowledge overlap, redundancy. Redundancy is very popular in IT, in like corporate culture. We most of the time don't have money or time for it, but we can create redundancy where we can, and we can do it in the knowledge department, the way that we do things and we know things. So we can diversify the knowledge between people. So if somebody gets sick or becomes absent in any way, there's always somebody that can handle a specific problem. This singularly this one is sometimes a lifesaver. So it's worth thinking about it and create buffer for it. Then sense of ownership. So get to know your team and diversify responsibility. Delegate things to people with a bit of trust. Invest that trust to the other people, because when they feel ownership of certain thing, certain functionality, part of the project, they will proactively tend to it and look that if something goes wrong, they will on their own try to fix it without telling them to. So it's really worth doing that as well. And also dealing with crisis. So as a leader, remain calm in the eye of cyclone. You have to be the one thing that everybody can lean on if they need to. Remember that we're not saving people's life. We give them entertainment and make money while doing that, but we're not making medical equipment. If we make mistakes, nobody loses health or life. So we should like balance our baseline stress based on it, right? So remember that people, especially when they are less experienced, tend to really like fall over or stress over even the smallest mistakes. But all in all, we should be fine, even if something something hits the fan, right? And if we have a problem and it's too big to handle on our own, remember that leader is always is also a human being, and we should be able to ask for help and divide problems, delegate, diversify, and conquer it together if possible, or at least split the problem into smaller ones and try to handle that this way. So what else is worth doing and avoiding while building anti-fragility? Barbell strategy is the one thing that is really worth doing, which builds up the knowledge overlap and tests people to some extent. And this is pairing a low risk or low cost strategy as the main one with a high risk reward as the secondary. This is good for example, for investments, of course, but also we can invest if we have a possibility that into the project. So we have, for example, network programming person that is really good at it, and we give that person a big important task because we are sure that that person will handle it without any problems. But in addition to that, we give that person a smaller task outside of their comfort zone, because then that person will have to ask around other people, so communicate and do a bit of team building, team bonding, and also creates that knowledge overlap that if something happens, that person might also help to solve the problem if the main person responsible for a given thing will be absent. So it's really important and I think really easy to implement. Also, what is not worth doing is naive intervention. So we try to be preemptive about something that we are uncertain of. So we try to create that bubble around the problem that is non-existent yet, or we don't know the magnitude of the problem. And most of the time, it is present within the project as a micromanagement or burning out as a leader through doing things for our people, but not giving enough trust to delegate a specific job to the other team members. So remember, do not micromanage, try to trust people and accept that sometimes they will not do everything as you imagined, but if it's good enough, accept good enough. And also, it's worth taking into consideration that even though you have certain idea and somebody else have different idea about the solution, but it's all in all metrics kind of the same, kind of good enough on both sides. It's always worth giving that person more agency by accepting their idea to implement certain solution, if that's possible, because then you build that sense of ownership, you elevate that person in terms of competence. So it's worth doing that as well. And there's another concept that I've stumbled upon while listening to Mark Dara, former BioWare director, and described in part in different books regarding production and project management in games. So, completion urgency is a state of philosophy focused on completing something. So, easy as that. That something is very scalable because it can be an atomic task or entire project. Sometimes we have all or almost all subtasks done in a specific assignment, but it's not finished up or integrated, hence it's not done. In that approach, almost done is not done enough. And it's different from the actual quality. That's a different thing, because something might not be performative enough as we would want to, but still works. So it's kind of done, but maybe not good enough. But still, we tend to happen, and it happens sometimes. I've seen that in many different projects, that you have this epic with various different elements, and people in general done their job, but somebody did not has not done the last part and not integrated everything. So actually the feature might be 95% done in terms of the volume, but actually in terms of the substance is zero, right? It can happen. So it's a worst state, because then you have this feeling of completely losing time. So to achieve it, we have to have this mindset on every level in the team, but that's at the same time it has to be led from the top to keep the vision going. So almost done is not done enough. And how to achieve completion urgency? Well, there are better and worst strategies, and let's get to the worst part. Crunch is a strategy to complete things, right? Because you have to complete stuff when you're crunching for a specific date to finish, and you focus on minimal viable product. You don't have time for sprinkles and sparkles. You burn out to the ground, and you make lots of mistakes, but you actually finish up the job, but it's absolutely not worth doing. Then you have demo-based approach. This is useful for vertical slice and conferences. You focus on appearance, so the game from the surface looks done, but actually underneath there's a lot of glue, paper, and hope that holds it up together, and it works to some extent under time pressure, but you have lots of placeholders there, so many things are not finished up and actually not good enough to land in the main project. So all in all, there's a risk of wasted effort. Then another approach that is not perfect but sometimes works is regular playthrough. So you finish up the sprint or milestone or some gate with a playthrough to verify the effects, and that is the main goal of production. And in that approach, you have less pressure because you keep this all internally. You focus not on appearance because you know that it might not look good, but because the team knows what happens underneath, but you focus on playability, and that to some extent is okay approach, but you'll risk leaving things halfway done because you don't have time. You have to skip to other things, and then you're not you don't have a guarantee of finishing up actually the whole feature. So in my opinion, there are two strategies that are the best: one for problems and bugs, and the other for tasks. So triage is a simpler one. You just assign work by priority or impact on the project. If something comes in, you reprioritize the tasks, and so on and so on. And of course, it's a good approach, very good approach at the finishing stage of the project, when you mostly have a feature freeze, content freeze, and so on. You just fix stuff. And with that thing is that if you happen to have some tasks there, people tend to prioritize tasks over bugs, which is not very advisable, but then you can convert them to bugs if you just sneakily rewrite them in a certain way. But still, people tend to be attached to their work and might have problems with doing stuff not connected directly to their work, or somebody other does the job, because at a certain moment you had to have you had to do something else. So it might create some tension within a team. Still, I think it's worth doing for bugs specifically. And you have the more intricate strategy, which is pile of sand. And pile of sand strategy is good for the pre-production and actual production. Hourglass, it is also called hourglass strategy, because if you think about creating the project as in a big sandbox, then you sieve the sand in a certain core element through the hourglass, for example. So you have this bottleneck, which is proficiency of your team, and the sand is time and effort. And if you focus on one specific point or several core features, you focus most of the time and effort there. You create other systems around them which are not that important as the core features. And if you have a certain core elements like that one, then at certain point those build stuff around will overlap, so you have those integration points, and through that you achieve complete core features with so-so or good enough other elements, which actually is desirable and most of the time most stable, and has the best outcome in my opinion. And so if you look at, for example, doing everything at the same time, you tend to have, as in the picture, you tend to have nothing done properly. Then if you go with waterfall, you have some things done but some incomplete because of the blocking, for example. But if you do the hourglass strategy, then you end up with core stuff done properly. And of course it has drawbacks, because through focusing on core stuff with the core team members, you tend to pressure them to do those things first, those things with the highest quality, and still it's not ideal, of course, but it's close enough. Whenever I had the opportunity, I've tested those strategies, and they actually worked. Of course, we have to have a group of people that can deal properly with pride, work attachment, and a bit of pressure, but that pressure is far less and far of smaller level of magnitude than crunch or demo-based approach. So not perfect, but I think good enough. Before we wrap up things, let me show you my toolset, which is free to use in any combination or not used at all. Your will. So, your call. First of all, introduce Agile properly. I said Agile because You can use Scrum, Kanban, Scrumban, extreme programming, whatever. Still, don't say it doesn't work if you do not do it properly by the book first. So, first, try to follow rules as much as possible, and then cut rituals or artifacts later if you see that something is not working for you. But do not do the other way around. And certainly do not say that it doesn't work for you if you don't test it by the book. Then organize workshops. So share knowledge, increase redundancy, increase knowledge overlap. One of the best things I happen to do is create algorithmic workshops for tech designers by the programmers, because they learn to do things more efficiently, and we later on had less work when we had to re-implement blueprints to the code when we wanted to optimize. So it's really, really worth doing, sharing the knowledge, sharing the things between departments. Also, for example, when you create tools for artists or whoever, try to do workshops explaining how to do it, but try to do it like a few times at least, because people tend to forget, or create videos or GIFs or something that will help them learn on their own time. Also, vision meetings. This is important. Ensure that this ensures coherent goals. So actually the game director or product owner should take all directors or leaders to one meeting every week or so to lay out the current vision of the project. So because the worst thing you can have is a really good team that can do things quickly, but they all doing different projects, and it happens very often. You would be surprised. So it can be scrum of scrums, it can be like a half an hour meeting, but still it should be done, and it's really beneficial in my opinion. Then one-to-one. So being available for your team, be available to every team member to talk about their needs, their problems, maybe some personal stuff might happen. Still, show that you're available to them. Next, unlock first approach. So something like from Kanban. The worst thing is that you have certain priorities that are artificially made, and then there is this one small task assigned to someone that is currently absent that holds off the whole project. Also, for example, if you program stuff and you do code review, if somebody doesn't put out the fires at the moment, somebody should do the code review to unlock your work. If you're a designer, somebody should be able to do, for example, quick implementation of it to reiterate on the idea. If you're an artist, and you should stop, I don't know, at the rough draft or in the middle of your work to get the feedback of your art director to verify whether you're going with the right direction. Those things are really important, and because of those blockers, companies tend to lose a really, really huge amount of money and time. Do not allow blockers in your flow, in your workflow. So unlock first approach, I think, in my opinion, is one of the most important thing you have to deal with in game making. Next, compressed communication. So try to fit all the calls within core hours. That's the first one. And then do not chop productivity. Try to compress them next to each other. Let the people talk for 2 hours and then leave them be making games, because every call like throws people out of the workflow, and then getting into the flow again tends to take another set of minutes, half an hour maybe, and because of that you're still again wasting your time and money by proxy. Also, pair programming is a useful tool, especially in a crisis. You can use it to create knowledge overlap. Sometimes it is important to tell people to ask for help, and through pair programming is a really good tool to get people to know how they think, how they solve issues, and do more fluently tasks, especially if somebody has a problem with task that can stop another set of tasks. So it's all connected, right? And it's really useful to utilize, for example, pair programming. Also, code review, a crucial thing in my opinion in terms of the code quality, and there is no one way to do it. In some companies, what I saw is that somebody of the higher level than you has to check the code. In the other company, I used a different approach. At least two pair of eyes had to look at the code before submitting, and most of the time, one of the equal level or higher and one younger. Why? Because they learn how to give feedback. They learn what is good and what is not. And through code review, actually, when we had a team of completely different programs on completely different levels, and some of them programmed in a completely different engine, and when we did code review and kept the coding guidelines intact, within 2 months, I guess, everybody started to program in the same way, and this was really satisfying to see that we cut out like 90% of some stupid mistakes within that time, because when people tend to write in the same way, it's more readable, it's more edible to go through, and then people tend to notice the problems. And on the level of code review, we happen to eliminate most of the smallest drawbacks of the code. So QAs had to deal with another level of problems, of course, but no small mistakes or typos were done thanks to regular code review and open consultations. That is also quite a good tool to eliminate calls or volume of the tasks. And this was actually created because we had like gap between two meetings every day. We had a half an hour, and through that half an hour, at least 2 or 3 programmers or entire team of code were gathering after the daily. We were talking about different stuff, but also sharing knowledge then. And if somebody called in, it was like full open meeting. So everybody could come in and ask for help, report some small thing. And through that, through, for example, this one half an hour meeting, we eliminated every day like 2, 3, 5, 10 small bugs. When somebody was describing the problem, some programmer in the back already fixed the issue, and by the end of the conversation, the problem was gone without any ticketing and so on, because we eliminated the volume. And also, and not everybody has the time or proficiency in properly describing the problem. So through the consultation call, they could describe it whenever the style they could. They could show us the problem. We could take over through TeamView and test it on our own. It was really beneficial thing, and it's worth doing it as well if you have very diversified team with So think about that. All right. So, let's summarize all that. I believe that you want to be a responsible leader, or you want that responsible leader in your place of work. I feel that you want to build a company that lasts, makes great games without sacrificing your private life or health of your people. I believe that the only thing you'll need to sacrifice is a bit of commitment, attention, and time. So, as a leader, serve the people you're leading, show engagement and commitment, lead by example, communicate and give feedback properly. Team improvement is an infinite game. Aim for anti-fragility, prioritize with completion urgency. The quality of your leadership determines the amount of success of your team. So there are leaders and those who lead. Those who lead use position of power to enforce their will to others. True leaders inspire. We follow those people not because we have to, but it's because we want to do it. So the hardest thing in my own experience is this. The burden of a leader is to take accountability of things you cannot control. But as I said in the beginning, being a leader is hard. So that's all from me today. If you have any questions, ask away, or you can get to me on socials, Teams, or through email if you have any further remarks, etc. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Greg, a huge thank you. This was great. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining this talk. My name is Erica. I'm the room host for this session. I've seen Greg and I both noticed that you've already been dropping questions into the chat. So I'm going to pass over now to Greg and let you just dive into the questions that we've got, Greg.
Sure, of course. Thank you, Erica. Hello, everyone, and thank you for your beautiful questions. I'll try to tackle them one by one with random order, so sorry about that. And let's see the first question. Agnieszka, quoting Łukasz, you said emotional safety is not necessary, but in the infinite game, leaders need to create an environment where people can be open about their fears, mistakes, and able to ask for help. I'd argue that you need emotional safety to get people to open up. True. What's your opinion on how to balance these? So you can be open about your problems, should treat and be treated with respect. To push through some of the problems, however, you have to be open to some uncomfortable questions and answers. That does not mean you have to be rude, but you cannot sacrifice honesty for emotional safety. There's a fine balance in that, but respectful honesty is, in my opinion, better than keeping a safety net that prevents us from progressing through tough moments. So I hope that's a proper answer here. Let's go to the next one. Also, Agnieszka, can you give us an example from your career when you started with why while introducing change? How did that go compared to other teams where the leads started with facts? So when I'm trying to introduce vision meetings, for example, I always use that strategy starting with a story of a movie director. I'm always saying it was Ridley Scott because he's a very cost-efficient director that every week gathered his team and asked them to throw into the bag an answer to one question: what film are we making? And through iteration, every time people started to align from very different points of view to the one that holds the proper vision of the movie director. And through that, he maintains all his leaders to be on the same page. Then I'm just asking probably most of the time the boss, do you want the same for your project? I would like it, and I'll show you how. So that's leading from why to how, and then what we need to do it. And it's all about the proper narrative, of course, with the proper mindset in heart. If you'd say, we need to gather for another meeting every week, nobody would want it, right? So you have to start from the reasons and how to do it, and then what we need to achieve it. Then Yannick, do you have a specific strategy to balance the benefit of one team member being an expert in a project area and ensuring that the project isn't dependent on that person? So yeah, that's a really tough one, because if you have like really good specialists, then it's hard to find another one. And yeah, so that's a tough one. Where you have one navigation programmer who gets assigned all of the nav tasks, but that means no one else has enough depth of knowledge because they've not applied it on this project. So yeah, the barbell strategy is a perfect for that. And if you combine it with knowledge sharing, you will create that anti-fragility. So first of all, some internal courses will help, of course, but try to find at least one member of the team to be trained by your nav programmer. It'd be the best if they would get along, because then the communication will go through quicker. And start giving that in-learning person some simpler tasks first, and suggest contacting that nav programmer. Through that, they will naturally share the knowledge and benefit from it, and of course the whole project should as well. Then, do you have any stories about moving deadlines with clients to avoid crunch and protect your teams? So a crunch was upon us. We saw that the deadline is imminent. People felt already this cold, like breath of doom, and I reported that to the producer and CEO and explained that if we get another 2-3 weeks, we would avoid it, but we will give them something in return. So luckily we had that bargain chip. Doing that opened the way to produce some shiny features faster. So I've justified prolonged milestone with added value. It's not always possible, but if you do have some idea to give something for the additional time, try to do it as much as you can and as cheap as you can on your team, because if you promise another thing, you will fall into that conundrum where you will still be in crunch and you will have another thing to you've promised. So yeah, try to keep the promise like reasonable. And Robert, you have shown strategies and steps a leader can take to improve their leadership and try to influence the organization. What if you are not a leader and want to introduce changes because you see or disagree with current leadership in your project or company? What can you do in such situations? So, first, try with a supervisor, mentor, leader. If you have a proper one, it should help, that person should help you elevate your idea, at least to be seen and heard by upper management. That's like the first step. And if the person right above you won't do that or will neglect that completely, try to do upper and upper and upper. Of course, there is a problem with the structure and finding time, but always try to like do the baby steps, right? So start with the closest supervisor, and if you have a proper one, then that person will help you elevate that further. All right. So do we have another question? Because I think I've answered all of them.
Yeah, I think you have. I think we've covered all the questions. Is there anything? I'm just looking through the chat to see if there's anything that's come up. I think we're all in agreement. This chat was fantastic.
Yes,
Great.
Thank you for your feedback, really.
Yeah, let me just check and see if we've got any more questions. No, I'm definitely going to be rewatching this, Greg, on Dojo. So this was great.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your questions, and thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you.